I'm currently under house arrest. Something moved in with me, part 3. 25/2025. It's been a little while since my last entry. I meant to continue sooner, but something happened, and I wasn't really sure how to explain it. I'm still not sure I even want to, or if I even understand what happened fully. I've just sort of been dealing with Warden as usual, just going through the motions. I just don't know what to think. I still don't quite think I'm ready to write it out just yet. I figured maybe if I write about some other stuff, that'll sort of hype myself up a little. Things were normal enough right after my last entry. Warden didn't get too upset about it, thankfully. It really seems like as long as I don't give out his details, he doesn't care that much. I had a couple of incidents since then, but they were nothing too awful. The first happened about a week after that last update. I can remember I was in the living room trying to watch some TV before bed. Work was killer that day. I didn't even notice him at first, but then he was just sitting beside me. He couldn't have walked over. I didn't hear any footsteps. He was just there now. I didn't feel like bringing it up, questioning him, or anything else like that, especially not after the day I had. He just sat there quietly watching the TV. He didn't look over at me, and I tried to do the same, but there's just something about Warden, something that pulls you in. Before I knew it, I was just staring at him. Neither of us said anything for what felt like forever. It was super awkward, and all I wanted to do was just leave the room and leave him to the TV, but I couldn't move at all. It felt hard to even blink. I'm still not sure if it was some weird reaction his presence caused my body, or if it was something he was doing to me. After what I can only assume was a few minutes, I was finally able to blink and break free. I shut my eyes, which felt like they had been dipped in hot desert sand by that point. I kept my eyes closed for a moment and turned my head back in the direction of the TV. Only when I opened my eyes, what I saw instead was a bookshelf. I was confused. I didn't even have a bookshelf in my living room. I looked around my living room, and the longer I did, the more I realized that I wasn't in my living room. I was in someone's living room, but it wasn't mine. I was still sitting on a couch, but this couch was a deep maroon color. Mine was light brown. This couch had white throw pillows. I wasn't nearly fancy enough for throw pillows. In front of me was a tall wooden bookshelf. There were only a few books in it, though. Most of it was filled with little porcelain knickknacks and trinkets. I took a moment to breathe and stood up. I wasn't really sure what else to do. I was so caught off guard that I hadn't even thought about asking Warden what was going on. I hadn't even bothered to look back at him until right then, and when I did, he was gone. Honestly, I expected as much. Of course he'd send me to some stranger's house and just dump me there. It did raise a lot of questions for me, besides the obvious anyway. I mean, if I really was in someone else's house, then surely my ankle monitor would be going off and I'd be getting a call, right? But that never happened. I'm not sure if Warden can affect my monitor or something. There doesn't seem to be anything he can't do, but it still made me wonder if there was another answer. Maybe he didn't mess with my monitor at all. Maybe I was still in my home, and I was just hallucination. Maybe it was all an illusion. I took a few steps around the living room, just getting my bearings. The floor was hardwood like mine, but it was a darker color, and there was a plush red carpet under my feet. It felt pretty nice, actually. I kept looking around and brainstorming about what exactly was going on. I got one idea I felt particularly strong on. Maybe this was my house, but just at a different point in time. Maybe he had sent me backward in time, maybe even forward. I wasn't really sure how to prove or disprove that other than seeing if the layout matched. I mean, people could add and take away walls, but in general, the house should still be the same shape, right? That was my first thought, so that's what I did. I was just slowly walking around this weird house to see if the rooms matched up with mine, while also silently praying that there wasn't anyone else in here, besides Warden anyway. Oddly enough, in these sorts of situations, Warden is a sight I'm actually thankful for. Maybe that's why he does it, trying make me feel helpless and like I need him. I didn't venture very far. I just looked around the living room and then poked my head out of it. There was a hallway on the east and a kitchen straight ahead. Bingo. It certainly seemed like the same layout as my house. The front door was where it always is. Granted, it was black now. Mine has always been white. So this was sort of my house. Maybe it was an alternate version of my house. Maybe it wasn't even in the same reality as I was in before. I felt slightly more comfortable somehow, so I just kept cautiously walking around. Maybe this was where Warden lived. Maybe it's where he came from, or where he goes when I can't find him. Some of these colors don't really match. I don't think Warden is very good with interior design. I won't dare tell him that though. I still didn't know exactly where I was. I still don't, not really. But I was a little more comfortable with the idea that this was at least kind of my house. Once that was settled, I focused less on trying to figure out where I was and more on where the hell Warden was. I checked around the place, room by room. I checked my bedroom. Oddly enough, instead of having different furniture in there, it didn't have any furniture at all. No bed, no desk or computer, nothing. That was particularly weird to me. Why my bedroom of all rooms? Why is it empty? I didn't know then why it was empty, and I still haven't figured that part out yet. Maybe he hates me so much that he can't even bear making a knockoff version of my room. I do stay there the most. I was just going to leave since there wasn't anything to look at. But then I took note of the fact that while my blinds were missing, the window was still there. That gave me idea to try and see if the outside world was still the same. It would help knock off some of my theories as to what and or where this place is. I stepped further into the empty, hollow feeling room to the window. It didn't even have wallpaper. It looked almost unfinished, random patches of white against the gray, soulless walls. I stepped up to the window and put my hands on the edge. When I did, I winced and moved back because I got a splinter stuck in my finger. I hadn't noticed just how worn down the wood was compared to the window in my world. It was natural wood, old and almost shattered looking. My window's wood was painted white and not, well, decrepit. I planned on pulling the sucker out, but I needed to satiate my curiosity first. I looked around out the window. The first thing I noticed is that it was a bright day out there, whereas it was night in my world. I wasn't really sure what I was hoping to find out there. What I was used to seeing was the tall brown wooden fence separating my house from my neighbors. What I saw instead was not much of anything. There was dirt, and then there was sky. There were no houses, no fences, no trees, not even grass. I was nowhere. It didn't entirely dispel my "is this the past?" or my "is this the future?" theories, but it made the alternate reality one much more plausible in my mind. It was just weird to look at. I kept just staring out there looking for anything out of place, but there was nothing. There were no roads, there were no sidewalks, there weren't even rocks in the dirt. It was just a flat plain of grassless dirt. There were no hills, there were no clouds. Even stranger was the fact that I couldn't find the sun. It was bright out there, but the light didn't seem to have a direct point of origin like it normally did. There was no sun, but there was light. There was light, but no shadows. It seemed like all of the light around was coming from straight above, like some sort of stage light. Maybe it really was where Warden lives. It certainly fit his uncanny aesthetic. Maybe Warden was even considered a normal person in this world, if there even were other people in this world. It seemed like I was the only life in that place. Maybe that meant something. If Warden did come from this place, it would be a little weird that he'd be the only living thing here. Maybe he isn't a living being at all. Though if he's not a living being, how does he move? How does he speak or breathe? Any brief hopes I had at understanding Warden, just the tiniest bit better, were quickly knocked out of me. I can't tell you how long I stood there staring out of that window. What I can say is that I must have been staring out there daydreaming for a while, because when Warden finally decided to grab my shoulder and jolt me out of my daze, my legs were aching like I had just gotten off one of my 8-hour shifts, stocking everything from flour to drain clean. He didn't really say anything. I didn't either. Not just because I didn't know what to say, but because my throat was just so dry, it hurt just trying to open it at all. I stood there staring at him for a moment after he scared me with his touch. Then I turned back to the window. When I did, however, the outside was back to what it had always been: lightly dying grass, a tall brown wooden fence, a sidewalk, a road. The street lights were there and beaming, all right where it was supposed to. My blinds were back, so was my wallpaper. He brought me back from that place even faster than he had taken me there. I don't know how long I was there. I stepped over to my computer and turned it on, slightly scared, but thankfully it was the same day and year as I had left. It seemed like I had only been gone for about 3 hours at that point. Even if I had been standing in place and staring that entire time, it was still weird how tired that place made me. Despite how tired I was, the only real evidence I had left this world at all was that tiny brown splinter still stuck in my finger. I still keep that little thing on my desk today, just as a reminder to myself that I'm not crazy. I wanted to go grab some water or something to ease the discomfort in my throat, but I was just too exhausted to bother with it. I slumped down onto my bed. I'll be honest, that was probably the best night of sleep I've gotten in a long while. I think I'm ready to say what I need to say. I don't want to dwell on it too long, so I think I'm just going to keep it brief and simple. That morning, I woke up. Normally, when I wake up, Warden is either on the couch or just nowhere at all, but that morning he wasn't. That morning, he was in my bed with me.